Welcome to NSG 223, study session 6, Obtained Information Consent. Introduction. In the past, nurses and doctors told the client what care he was going to receive, and the client agreed to it. Recently, there has been a shift in the balance of power between the caregiver and the care receiver. Clients are seeking more self-determination and control over their bodies when ill. In this study session, we will examine the concept of consent, the responsibilities of the nurse in obtaining consent, stages in obtaining informed consent, problems that may be encountered in obtaining consent, and how the problems can be effectively dealt with. Learning outcomes. By the end of this study session, you should be able to 1. Describe the history and assessment of informed consent. 2. Outline the responsibilities of the nurse in obtaining consent. 3. Describe the process of obtaining consent. 4. Outline the stages of ongoing care and problems encountered in obtaining consent. History of informed consent. Informed consent is a legal procedure to ensure that a patient, client, and research participants are aware of all the potential risks and costs involved in a treatment or procedure. The elements of informed consent include informing the client of the nature of the treatment, possible alternative treatment, and the potential risk and benefit of the treatment. In tracing its history, some scholars have suggested tracing the history of checking for any of these practices. 1. A patient agrees to a health intervention based on an understanding of it. For example, a person may verbally agree to something from fear, perceived social pressure, or psychological difficulty in asserting his true feelings. The person requesting the action may honestly be unaware of this and believe the consent is genuine and rely upon it. Consent is expressed but not internally given. 2. The patient has multiple choices and is not compelled to choose a particular one. For example, a person may state he understands the implications of some action as part of his consent, but in fact has failed to appreciate the possible consequences fully and later deny the validity of his consent for this reason. Understanding needed for informed consent is stated to be present, but is in fact, through ignorance, not present. 3. The consent includes giving permission. For example, a person may move from friendship to sexual contact on the basis of body language and apparent receptivity, but very few people on a date that results in sexual contact have explicitly asked the other if his or her consent is informed. Assessment of consent. Informed consent can be complex to evaluate because neither expressions of consent nor expressions of understanding of implications necessarily mean that full adult consent was in fact given. Consent may be implied within the usual subtitles of human communication rather than explicitly negotiated verbally or in written. Nurses' responsibilities in obtaining consent. Obtaining informed consent for specific medical and surgical treatment is the responsibility of a physician. This responsibility is delegated to nurses in some agencies, and no law prohibits the nurse from being part of the information given process. Often, your responsibility is to witness the giving of the informed consent for medical procedures. This involves the following. 1. witnessing the exchange between the client and the physician. 2. Establishing that the client really did understand, that is, was really informed. 3. That the client freely or voluntarily gives his or her consent. 4. Witness the client's signature or thumb printing. Obtaining informed consent. To capture and manage informed consent, hospital management systems typically use paper-based consent forms which are scanned and stored in a document handling system after obtaining the necessary signatures. Hospital systems and research organizations are adopting an electronic way of capturing informed consent to enable indexing, to improve comprehension, search and retrieval of consent data, thus enhancing the ability to honor to patients' intent and identify willing research participants. Written consent process. Obtaining written informed consent from a potential subject is more than just a signature on a form. A. The consent document is to be used as a guide for the verbal explanation of the study. B. The consent document should be the basis for a meaningful exchange between the investigator and the subject. C. The subject's signature provides documentation of agreement to participate in a study, but is only one part of the consent process. D. The consent document must not serve as a substitute for discussion. In research. In medical research, the Nuremberg Code set a base international standard in 1947, which continued to develop. For example, in response to the ethical violation in the Holocaust. Nowadays, medical research is overseen by an ethics committee that also oversees the informed consent process. Exemption in obtaining consent. 3 groups of clients cannot provide consent. They include A. Minors. These are people who are below the age of 18 years. For this group, a parent or guardian must give consent before they can obtain treatment. The same is true of an adult who has the mental capacity of a child and who has an appointed guardian. However, minors who are married, pregnant, parents, members of the military are in some places often legally permitted to provide their own consent. B. Unconscious persons or persons who are injured in such a way that is unable to give consent. In these situations, consent is usually obtained from the closest adult relation. In a life-threatening emergency, if consent cannot be obtained from the client or relation, the law generally agrees that consent is implied. C. Mentally ill persons who have been judged by professionals to be incompetent. The Mental Health Act or similar status generally provide definitions of mental illness and specifies the rights of the mentally ill under the law as well as the rights of the staff caring for such clients. The 3 major elements of informed consent are: 1. The consent must be given voluntarily or freely. 2. The consent must be given by an individual with the capacity and competence to understand. 3. The client must be given enough information to be the ultimate decision maker. Ongoing consent to care. Most often, consent is directed mainly at specific episodes of care, for example, procedures and surgery. It is not therefore specific enough or appropriate for those receiving long-term care for which the issue is ongoing consent to care and treatment, not specific episode. For such clients, Active participation in the planning and reviewing of their care is required to ensure ongoing consent to care. Stages of ongoing consent to care. Stage 1. Giving information. Every client must have a care plan in which his or her access care needs and the care to be given are recorded. For mentally competent people, the first stage should be for you to inform them that they have a plan. Offer those who can read the opportunity to read the plan, and for those who cannot read, explain the content of the plan. Stage 2. Consultation with the client. Consultation with the client implies that you take into account issues such as client's beliefs, values, preferences, and perceived quality of life when making a decision on their behalf. Stage 3. Active participation of the client. You should encourage the client to be actively involved in planning and reviewing their care as recorded in their care plan. Active participation of the client can have potential benefits which include: 1. The client's care plan is likely to be more individualized if the client had helped to compile it. 2. Clients are assisted to become more independent and thus minimize hospitalization. 3. The care plan is likely to be a more valid and workable tool from the client's perspective and thus increase the client's cooperation with the strategies prescribed. Stage 4. Consent to care. Here, the client agrees to the care. For any person to be able to give a meaningful consent to his or her care, the previous 3 stages must be followed. Without adequate information, the ability to process the information, and the opportunity to ask questions, the client cannot give a valid consent. Stage 5. Making an advance statement and/or directive. The logical and progressive stage after giving consent to the care that was suggested would be for the client to specify the care strategies he wants or does not want in any given situation. Clients who have made an advance statement and/or directive should be able to feel confident that their wishes will be complied with, even if they are not able to give their instructions personally. Problems in obtaining consent. Sometimes, you may encounter a client or members of a client's family whom for various reasons resist or oppose treatment. Such reasons may be religious, sociocultural, economic, or politically based. Examples of such problems include: 1. The patient who needs but refuses treatment. 2. The parent who refuses permission to treat a child with life-threatening illness. 3. The mentally ill person. 4. The intoxicated or belligerent client. 5. Client who gives and then withdraws consent for treatment, etc. Strategies to resolve problems in obtaining consent. In order to deal effectively with the problems from the client or the family in obtaining consent, the nurse must integrate fundamental principles of behavior assessment and modification into the treatment process. The steps are as follows. 1. Assess the client to identify and deal effectively with any psychosocial or physical difficulties that could be militating against obtaining consent. 2. Institute every effort reasonable and lawful to convince the client to urge him to accept the required treatment. 3. If a conscious or rational adult client or parent refuses to give consent, it cannot be treated without risk of civil and criminal liability. In such a situation, the refusal should be carefully documented and witnessed. An example of this is Discharge against medical advice. 4. Obtain legal consultation if the client's condition is sufficiently grave. Summary. In this study session, you have learned that 1. Obtaining informed consent is a fundamental part of your caregiving process, and failure to obtain consent to care can expose you to the risk of legal and ethical liability. 2. It is important that you know and understand your responsibilities in obtaining consent to care. 3. Informed consent is an agreement by a client to accept a course of treatment or a procedure after complete information has been provided by a healthcare provider. 4. The process of ongoing consent to care is in 5 stages as follows: giving information, consulting with clients, encouraging active participation of clients, and giving consent to care and advance statements and/or directives from the client. End of study session 6. Thanks for listening.